Joining us is Jeff Van Gundy. Jeff, we were just talking about, you go back to when Bill Laimbeer and Robert Parrish squared off one time, and Parrish hit him twice. He punched him twice. He didn't even get called for a foul. And we were, when you start to compare generations, the way it was played in the 80s and even the 90s is a whole lot different than the way it's played now. Dellavedova's play, we might have seen that a couple times during an NBA game in the 80s or 90s. By the way, good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. I think the rules on the court, were far different, and I think the amount of contact and the byplay between players, obviously was far different. And now there's I think everybody's trying to lump Dellavedova's plays together. Listen, I didn't understand why Taj Gibson, when Dellavedova leg locked him, why he was ejected. I have no problem with Dellavedova's play when he's going after the loose ball. Unfortunately, Korver, got injured. I don't think there's anything to apologize if you're Dellavedova on that play. And on the third one with Horford, to me, it's so hard to judge intent on what he was intending to do. Only he knows if he was trying to roll into Al Horford's leg or not. But I'm not going to be one to sit here and accuse him of something because, that whole label of dirty, it depends on the era. He would have been a choir boy in the 80s.
Well, I wonder how Jordan would have been treated had he been playing today, because you're allowed to put your hand on him. You were able to rough him up. Now, granted, stars get calls, but imagine the calls that he might get now.
Well, there's no question. What Jordan and the great scorers of the 80s and 90s had to play through as far as level of physical contact, what was allowed on the perimeter and in the post was far different. And I actually think the rules have been good for the NBA. The freedom of movement and all that, I think it's been good for the NBA. But I think those people who say, with the rules in place today, Jordan could have easily averaged 40. I don't dispute that at all.
Well, Phil Jackson told me that, a year and a half ago. I said, if you can't hand check Mike, he said, he'll average whatever he wants to average, that you wouldn't have been able to stop him.
Yeah, and his diversification of his game, he was at the basket, obviously, particularly when he was younger, with, those unbelievable forays to the rim, but his post game was unguardable. I mean, and now the way they call things, and the spacing and all the three-point shooting that people put on the floor, he would have had so much space on the floor to go to work. And it's also interesting, I was in Cleveland, I was saying because of Atlanta's injury, I don't know if they're, when they lost Korver to injury, Horford was ejected. Listen, that's not the talent level that you expect to see in a conference finals. I think Atlanta had a terrific year, and their achievements were unbelievable. But because they started taking on all these injuries and such, that wasn't an over. Usually you see a Hall of Fame player or someone you can imagine being a Hall of Fame player on a conference final team. And, I think that speaks to how much Atlanta overachieved this year.
Yeah, there's certain teams that I think are built for the regular season, and some are built for a playoff. And I think that's the difference with Atlanta and some of these other teams. They were built for the season, had a great season, but in a 7-game series, I think flaws can be exposed. You don't have that go-to guy, the playoff experience. And I thought that, Cleveland was going to win, but I thought that some of those flaws sometimes surface in a 7-game series.
Well, I also think, too, there's no shame in losing to LeBron James. People have been doing that for a long time in our league. So I think they have found something there with, I think, playing Tristan Thompson huge minutes. Kyrie Irving coming back. Hopefully he can remain healthy the rest of the way. They're hard to guard. You put James in a pick and roll. You got that offensive rebounding on the floor. And then, David Griffin has done a fabulous job. They were 19-20, and it's not trying to find the best players around LeBron James. It's trying to find the best fit, and they found the fit when they added Smith, Shumpert, and Mozgov to put shooting on the floor and rebounding and activity on the floor. That was a great job done by him, and then David Blatt did a wonderful job putting it all together.
He's Jeff Van Gundy of the Mothership. Game 5 coming up tonight, Rockets at the Warriors. Steph Curry, to do what he does, and you being a defensive-minded coach, how would you attack that? And I guess we have Houston's personnel, but what do you make Steph Curry do that he doesn't want to do?
Well, it's hard because of their roster construction. It's early on in his career, I thought he had some issues with handling, the hard trap. But when you put a great decision maker like Draymond Green at the 4, and let's say you pick and roll and you trap him, now the ball comes back to Draymond Green. Well, they're playing 4-on-3, and he is such a dynamic decision maker. The knowing when to shoot, when to pass, when to drive it. It's really hard to do that. So now what teams are trying to do is switch. Well, it's very difficult. You have to be a very gifted and talented foreman if you're going to switch on to Steph Curry for an entire possession. Whether he beats you initially off the dribble or he passes it and moves without the ball and then gets it back, that's really, really a challenge. I'm not sure there is a great strategy other than, I think you would like to put a bigger, stronger, longer guy on him so that hopefully the size on Curry impacts his shot.
I don't remember somebody like him. And there's been great shooters, but to have the ability to do what he does, plus you're handing out 8 or 9 or 10 assists a game, it's not like he's just a spot-up jump shooter here. Where do you kind of put him in that pantheon of scores that you've seen down through the years?
Well, again, I think that's why it's hard to also, compare eras because rules are different. But I think Mark Jackson made a great point the other night, Dan. Everybody talks about Steve Nash, but Nash really, he was definitely a pass-first guy. Now, he's going to go down as one of the greatest shooters to ever play the game. But he certainly was thinking pass-first. To me, what makes Curry so great is he has this hunger to score, and he is attacking you on each possession. And Mark made the point that people forget about this guy, but Mark Price really started that type of point guard in that era where, this guy could shoot it. He was great in pick-and-roll situations where, he would split it. And I always fondly remember back to, Charles Oakley because, we would get split and hurt with Price dribbling around, and he would always say, I got to make him split and then knee him on the way through and let him know. And, you can't do that now. But that was, that was our best defense. And he wasn't, as you know, Dan, he wasn't saying that with like a smirk, like I wouldn't even think of doing that. No, he not only thought of it, he carried it out.
Price was so quick off the dribble, though. You're right. Mark's right about that. When you're trying to – Steph Curry, I think, was helped out by Steve Nash. I think he looked at Nash as somebody he wanted to emulate. He just became better at handling his ball handling and then getting the shot. If you look at Nash, when you shoot 90 from the line, you're shooting 40 from 3 and 50 from 2. There's a short list of guys, players in the history of the game who've done that, and Nash was able to do that on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, and I think, when you're talking about all of those guys, that they could catch and shoot, but they could also shoot it off the dribble. And I think that ability, you don't see a lot of guys who can pull and shoot a high percentage off the dribble. And I think not only what Nash did inspired maybe Curry, but also I think it gave general managers who were thinking of drafting, those type of guys and building their team around them. It gave them, an example of, it can work. And I think, what they've done in Golden State over the last 5 years, particularly when they, traded Monte Ellis had turned the team over to Curry is they put that ball in his hands. And, listen, systems are great. I don't care, but systems are made by players. And so, Steph Curry, what he's being able to do right now and the efficiency he's able to do it with, and we haven't seen that type of stuff.
No. I know you talked about this before, that you had kids, you wanted to be around them when they were growing up, that it was important for you. You'd spent so much time coaching. Is now the right time to go back to work as a coach?
Oh, I thought you were saying go back to work like I'm not working hard right now.
Well, you're not. I mean, when you're really working hard.
The mothership would be angry with you if they felt I wasn't giving them full effort. My goodness. You know what? I think about this a lot as far as coaching. There are really certain things you can't replace that you miss when you're not coaching, and that's the competition and the camaraderie of being a part of the team. So you, as a coach, when you're not coaching, you definitely miss that. It's irreplaceable. And at the same time, I know how good I have it at ESPN, and I also think you've got every coach is always looking for a situation that feels right for them. And so I'm really fortunate. I've had some opportunities along the way to coach again that just for whatever reason weren't the right situations, and whether one pops up or not, remains to be seen.
Is there a situation that's open now that has piqued your interest?
Well, that's not really. I don't really like to talk about stuff like that because I believe in the sanctity of the coaching search, and so if somebody ever wants to talk to me, that'd be great. But if not, I'm real happy with what I'm doing.
Has anybody
That's a good dodge, Dan. Come on, you got to give me credit on that.
I'm coming right back at you. I'm Jordan.
Okay.
I'm coming right back at you.
All right.
Have you heard from anybody about a job opening?
Well, over the past few years, I have.
Recently.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm saying recent, the past few years. And, and I've loved it because, when you talk basketball with people, you exchange ideas, and whether it's the right situation for them or for you, you learn stuff. And so I'm always interested in that. And I always enjoy those conversations.
Would you like to coach Anthony Davis?
Listen, there's no one who's ever coached. There's no one who's ever coached that wouldn't want to coach a great player with great character. And so I've been able to do that in my life. I've already coached, the great, player with great character, and how important that is if you want to win big in a situation. And so, I had Patrick Ewing and Yao Ming and McGrady and Houston and Oakley and all these guys, right? So, listen, anybody who says, nah, that Anthony Davis, I would never want to coach a guy who's a top 5 player and a great person. I wouldn't believe that if somebody said that.
Were you this quick on the court?
I used to say, Dan, that I like to penetrate with the pass instead of the dribble because you know what gave me problems? Like when I was doing individual workouts, the cones on the court, I could beat them off the dribble all the time. It was those darn other players that got in my way of greatness, When those damn cones came to life, they always gave me trouble too. Yeah, it was always the other players, and I used to tell Mark Jackson, said, when they were getting on me about my playing career, I said, hey, I got 12 one time in traffic against the University of Rochester, so watch out.
Have fun tonight, and good luck in New Orleans. Good luck with the rest of the postseason.
All right, Dan. Take care.
All right, that's Jeff Van Gundy.